Are you the legal guardian of John Connor?
So this is Louis, and I thought I would do something a little bit different, and try to do a lazy review of Copland, which is a rather poor Sylvester Stallone movie from the late 90s, I want to say it was. I watched this a long time ago, but it got recommended to me from YouTube today for some reason. I think it's a Miramax movie, and I watched a clip from another Miramax movie. That might be it. It might be the Joker movie's Miramax, and so is this movie. I hope I'm saying Miramax right. It's not a very good movie. Sylvester Stallone is miscast. The script is not very good, and by that I don't necessarily mean the dialogue, but the actual script, the actual plot, the story, the pacing. Definitely Sylvester Stallone's character, and I think that it's exacerbated by him being miscast in this role. If you look at the movie on paper, there are a ton of good actors in this movie. And I'm going to talk about actors in a minute here, but if you just look at this movie on paper, you got Sylvester Stallone, you got Robert De Niro, you got fucking Ray Liotta, or they say it Liotta in the trailer. I say Liotta because I'll determine how I pronounce these fucking Italians' names. You got a lot of actors in this movie that are great, and I guess I'll just say it here. I don't know how many people noticed this. I never noticed this until I watched it. Yo, there are like a million actors that were in The Sopranos that were in this movie, and I never noticed before now.
I know you need to talk to me. I'll come in next week sometime. How's that? Jackie here's coming in early for you. Tomorrow.
All right, Jackie. Mo Tilden.
Yeah, hey.
Mo Tilden.
Yeah, Frankie Laguna.
I'm sorry. Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I heard voices. I was gonna have the base call you back anyway.
People are backward culture over there. Let me tell you something, we're all backwards, Berta. You know, our machines are all modern and shit, but our minds are primitive.
Vincent Lucero, I'd like you to meet Sheriff Freddie Heflin.
You did a good job here. You did a great job. Real nice.
Thank you.
Two in the center?
No, rules are different for cops. I'm losing my shirt here with you guys.
All right, so what do I gotta do?
5 out of 6 in the star.
Amazing thing about snakes is that they reproduce spontaneously.
What do you mean?
They have both male and female sex organs. That's why somebody you don't trust, you call a snake. How can you trust a guy who can literally go fuck themselves?
To a geologist.
Don't you think that expression would come from the Adam and Eve story? When the snake tempted Eve to bite the apple?
Hey, snakes were fucking themselves long before Adam and Eve showed up, T.
There are a ton of actors in this movie that were later in The Sopranos. It is bizarre just how many there is. And so when I noticed all that watching this film, it really hurts me because it's like there are an unbelievable number of actors in this movie that I know from watching other things are rock solid actors. And unfortunately, you can have a decent casting for all these other actors, which were fine, but you miscast Sylvester Stallone. He was way too old to play this part. Like, people treat him like he's a kid, and in the movie he's like fucking 40. Completely miscast, doesn't make any sense. If you had him being played by whoever was young in 1997, then I think this could have been a better movie. But also, the character itself that Stallone plays is way too much of a fucking cuck. And I know that, like, for the point of the movie is for him to get to the end and to no longer be a giant cuck and to do the right thing and to be real police and that sort of deal. And I understand that. But unfortunately, the way that you structured this character to look like such a fucking pussy is not good. You could have given him a couple opportunities to show himself to be real police, to be a true police officer. And he is brave. But in the face of, I think the character's name is Ray, who's the dirty cop, which I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's pretty clear up front that he's a dirty cop. When it comes to him, show that character as Stallone's weak spot. Like, Stallone, when dealing with him, because he's family friends with him, he's been friends with him forever, he's so close with this guy, that in particular with him, and they show this in the movie, but you got to show the contrast. It can't just be him being a total cuck the whole movie. It has to be, he's a good officer, he's good police, but when it comes to this particular guy, he's weak against him. He has a very clear soft spot for him. And so you have the scene where he pulls him over and doesn't give him a ticket, and have him in that situation, rather than act like a total cuck, he goes, "Don't worry, Ray, I got your back, I'll look out for you, don't worry about this, have a good day." That sort of deal. If you change the character just slightly, and you give him moments in the movie where you know that he's actually a good cop, but he's choosing to look the other way with this dirty cop, because this guy has been a part of his entire life. If they would have just twisted that a little bit in the script, I think this could have been a better movie. So unfortunately, with this particular movie, there's just enough wrong with it that it just doesn't work overall. And so I can't really recommend it to you. I'm not going to spoil it, because maybe you're going to go out and sail the high seas, so to say, and do it that way to watch it. But I'm not going to say, like, go on YouTube, buy this, rent it for $5 or whatever, because it's just not that good of a movie. The one part of this that I want to talk about, and I think this is kind of the justification for this review, is the scene at the beginning with this, I forget the name of this actor, I don't really like him, he's become like an SJW on Twitter. I don't like the guy because he's one of those guys who thinks swearing makes you tough. You're not hard, you don't impress me, you look like a clown. If I'm pushing 50 and I'm doing what this guy's doing, just kill me then. It's embarrassing. At some point in your life, and maybe I'm not there just yet, even nearing the age of 30, you have to grow up. Running around challenging people when you're 40, 50 years old in a really antagonistic, aggressive fashion that it is violent. Like, you are propositioning others towards violence like this guy does. I've seen a bunch of social media posts with this guy, and that's what he does. You're not hard, dude. You are like 50 years old. You're an old man. Shut the fuck up, old man. The scene at the beginning of the movie where this guy is drunk, he's leaving a bachelor party, I want to say. He leaves this bar or strip club, whatever, gets in his car, and he's driving down the road. So he's drunk driving. He shouldn't be doing that, okay? So he's in the wrong. Fine. The movie, it's really weird about this, but I want to present this to you, okay? So he's driving down the road, and some gangbanger types, and I'm pretty sure they are gangbangers, they freaking sideswipe his car, like in a crazy fucking fashion. It's not like he's weaving, he's sort of nodding off, he's drunk. They sideswipe his car like crazy. And so he rolls up to them with his badge out, and he's like, "Yo, pull the fuck over. Pull over. I'm police. Like, look at my badge. Look at my badge. Pull over. You just sideswiped the fuck out of my car and are leaving the scene of an accident." He's drunk, and so you can debate this, but I'm not really very aware of the legalese in 1997 in New York City. But as far as I'm aware, so far, this is okay. The guy might be drunk, but you just struck a cop in a car and are leaving the scene. You're fleeing the scene. So they're fleeing the scene. He pulls out his badge and he's like, "Yo, police, pull over. Pull the fuck over." The passenger of the vehicle pulls a steering wheel lock up and points it at the officer. What's weird is, do you see these things anymore? My parents used to have a steering wheel lock. I don't see these anymore. What made the steering wheel lock antiquated? What made it obsolete? I have no idea. Is it just better, anti-theft systems on vehicles? There's still plenty of car theft as far as I'm aware. What made the steering wheel lock obsolete? Because I don't see them anymore. Who talks about steering wheel locks? This is something out of the 90s. If any of you are gear niggers, tell me what made the steering wheel lock antiquated. Anyways, so the passenger pulls up this steering wheel lock, and I do think it looks like a gun. The drunk officer sees this and slams on the brakes. The two guys start pulling away as he hits the brakes because he's afraid. He thinks they have a gun. His front left tire pops. He thinks it's a gunshot, so he pulls his service weapon, fires on the vehicle, and in doing so, kills the two passengers, the driver and the passenger. Then he crashes into their vehicle. This starts the basic plot of the story where Superboy, which is the name of the character, has to go into hiding because of this action. But the issue is he necessarily completely in the wrong? If they can get him home without having to be breathalyzed, or even in the case that they do breathalyze him and he was drunk driving, you lose your license, maybe you potentially go to jail. I'm not too sure. It depends on other offenses, I suppose. But he's likely going to be fined, whatever it is, $10,000. The two guys that he shot instigated this interaction, and he's the only living witness to this scene. He claims that, they took his story on scene and everyone that was there to hear it. He shot these two guys because he said they pulled a weapon. They search the vehicle, and they find crack. So it's very likely, unless they planted it, they didn't show them planting the crack, it's very likely these two guys are gangbangers. This cop thought he saw a weapon, he shoots at their vehicle, and he kills them. He thought he was under fire. Is that murder? Because the way the movie presents it, it's like this horrible white tyrant massacred, murdered these two innocent din-dos. That's how this movie presents this, because the one cop then goes and plants, I think it's a Mac 10 or a Mac 11. It might be a Mac 10. You gun niggers, you let me know what kind of gun this is. So he plants a firearm in the car, and the medic, the EMT, knows that it wasn't there because he checked on the bodies. So he flips out, there's a fight, blah, 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 and it's like, yeah, he planted a gun, that's bad. He's a dirty cop, wag of the finger. These are still two gangbangers that crashed into a cop's car, had crack cocaine in the vehicle, and were fleeing the scene of an accident, laughing the whole time, and using a tire lock, or excuse me, steering wheel lock, to pretend to have a weapon. And by the way, two gangbangers that don't have a pistol? What world is this? They're willing to sideswipe a car and drive around with crack cocaine and do all this crazy shit, but they don't have a gun? This really is Hollywood. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to walk this back. It starts with, the cop, Super Cop, or Superboy, whatever his name is, he kills himself. Oh, he jumped off the bridge. And it launches into the story based on that, of trying to get this guy off for murdering these two gangbangers. But it's like, what kind of charges would he face? He would lose his job, most likely, for being drunk and all the rest of it. He would likely lose his job for this shooting, which you could argue is felonious. I don't think it is really justified. But he's intoxicated and he's fearing for his life. And the guy literally had the steering wheel lock in his bloodied hand. So there's all the evidence in the world, if you didn't tamper with the scene, that this guy did threaten him. This guy did point this at him as it were a gun to scare him, to get him away as he was trying to make an arrest. They're fleeing the scene. He is drunk, so disciplinary action for being drunk, but he's trying to make a lawful arrest. These two guys are, they crashed into him and are fleeing the scene, and then they're threatening him. And they're disobeying a lawful order given by an officer who's displaying his badge. I'm an officer. I don't really understand why all this was really necessary. Because even though if Superboy went down, lost a job, and so on, I fundamentally don't understand why he couldn't join the garrison or whatever the town is in New Jersey. Why couldn't he be a cop over there? Especially when what's-her-face quit in the movie. Get him a job over there. Maybe somewhere down in the future he can get juiced back into a spot in New York City. He can go back to being NYPD. I don't understand why the beginning played out the way it did. Because while the shooting wasn't necessarily justified, it was in error. It wasn't through malice. It wasn't because he's drunk and he hates black people and so on. It was an error. It was a mistake. He killed those two guys because he felt threatened and he thought he was under fire. It was a mistake. It isn't really murder. Negligent homicide, whatever the actual charge would be. But he's like panicking in the movie, saying like, "Oh my God, I'm done." Blah blah blah. It's like it would probably be very disruptive to your life, and you might go to prison for a few years, depending on the charges you get. But is this just straight up murder? Am I misunderstanding this? You're a cop. You're ordering them to pull over. You showed your badge to them and are ordering them to pull over, and they're fleeing the scene laughing at you and then pointing this at you. I fundamentally don't understand how this movie is presenting this as the two din-dos and the evil white cop who killed them and is done. His life is over. He's going to the gas chamber in 1997. It's like, fucking what? How? In what way? It was in error. This isn't premeditated murder. This isn't a sequence of events where this guy's about to get a lethal injection for killing these two shitty gangbangers who threatened him. He just misunderstood what they were threatening him with. He thought he was under fire. What's funny in this movie, and I'm sure they didn't intend this, is that all the black people that aren't cops act like fucking assholes. You got these two black sightseers that scream at Sylvester Stallone because they got a ticket for being unlawfully parked somewhere. They claim they were watching the sunset or some shit, and they got ticketed by the other cop, and they scream at Sylvester Stallone, like, "Oh, you're hassling us." You got that. Then you have the gangbanger that, I won't spoil anything, but he's on the roof with the one cop, and he's beating him up, and he severely wounds another officer. You got that crazy psycho. And then you have these two gangbangers on George Washington Bridge, or whatever bridge it was in New York City, where they're also guilty. They're not, two din-do joggers down the road. These two guys are gangbangers. They're likely drug dealers. They had crack in the car, and it was at least a quantity enough to likely be a dealer. So they're not innocent either. I have to imagine it was a mistake in the screenwriting. Because all the black people, except for the cops, the black cops are fine, but the all the black citizens are all bad. Oh, it's funny. I noticed that towards the end. I was like, hey, wait a minute. I'll wrap this up because I don't want to make this too long of a video. It's not a recommend even. It's not a recommended movie. I didn't spoil anything, I don't think, in this, and I'll be careful while editing it to make sure I didn't spoil anything, just in case you want to watch it at your leisure, because I try not to spoil anything unless it really angers me and I'm saying, like, don't watch this movie, then, I'll spoil it then if I don't care. But in this case, I can't really justify the purchase for you because it's not really that good of a movie. I have seen a few good movies lately. What was that Adam Sandler movie? Uncut Gems. That wasn't too bad. That was actually pretty good. So if you want to recommend, you can go watch that. It's good for a rent. You know what I mean? Not that bad a movie. It's surprising with Adam Sandler. It just goes to show you that maybe Adam Sandler should hang up being a director, producer, whatever, and just be an actor and play certain parts because he can pull it together when he's an actor. I liked him a lot in that movie. So I guess there's your recommend. If you want a movie to watch, don't watch Copland because it's not very good. Watch Uncut Gems instead because it's surprisingly good, at least for a one-time watch. I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening.